Welcome back, Trailblazers. Before we dive into today's episode, I want to take a moment to talk about a tool that has completely transformed the way I plan and navigate my hikes, AllTrails Plus. As a Trailheads ambassador and the organizer of the Yakima Valley Trekkers, I'm out on the trails a lot. One of my favorite features of AllTrails Plus is the ability to edit and create my own maps. Conditions change, fallen trees, washed out sections, or even a last-minute reroute. And with AllTrails Plus, I can adjust my route on the fly and share it with others so everyone stays informed and safe. AllTrails Plus also gives you offline maps, wrong turn alerts, and 3D trail previews to help you stay on track and make the most of your adventure. And the best part, you can get 30% off an AllTrails Plus membership with my exclusive link in the episode show notes. So whether you're planning your next big trek or just looking for a new trail to explore, AllTrails Plus has you covered. Check it out and let's hit the trail. Welcome to Season 12 of the Hikes and Mikes podcast. I'm your host, Ivan, and each week we're hitting the trail through conversations with extraordinary hikers from across the United States and beyond. Fall is one of those magical times to be outdoors. The air is crisp, the trails are lined with golden leaves, and every step feels like an invitation to slow down and soak in the season. This year, I've had the privilege of sitting down with hikers who bring the same richness to their stories. From through hikers reflecting on lessons learned to everyday adventurers chasing larch season and finding peace on quiet trails, their voices remind us that the outdoors isn't just about reaching summits. It's about connection, reflection, and discovery. So lace up your boots, grab your favorite warm drink for the trail, and get ready. Season 12 is here, and the conversations ahead are as colorful as the fall landscapes we love. For the Season 12 finale of Hikes and Mikes, we welcome back Chickpea for a powerful, full-circle conversation 1 year after her first appearance on the podcast. In that time, Chickpea has taken bold leaps off-trail and in life, becoming a full-time traveler, backpacking and mindset mentor, yoga instructor for hikers, and writer, helping others take their first brave steps into the outdoors. We dive into a year shaped by long trails and inner work, from Scotland's West Highland Way to Portugal's stunning Rota Vicentina Fisherman's Trail, and her return to the Pacific Crest Trail in Washington, including a deeply meaningful honeymoon hike through the Cascades and Olympic Coast. Chickpea opens up about redefining the idea of home, navigating the tension between constant movement and stillness, and how mindfulness on the trail has become the foundation of both her personal life and coaching work. Along the way, we talk trail curiosities and joys, vino verde and gooseneck barnacles, honesty boxes, birdwatching discoveries, elopement magic, and why Oregon might be one of the PCT's most underrated sections. The conversation closes with heartfelt encouragement for anyone sitting at a desk dreaming of adventure but doubting themselves, and a reminder that you don't need to have everything figured out to begin. Without further ado, let's jump into this episode with our guest, Chickpea. Welcome, everyone, to the latest episode of the Hikes and Mikes podcast. I have a really special guest with me today. It's going to be her 1 year anniversary since she first came on the podcast, and she's going to be catching us up what she's been up to in the last year, some exciting things on the horizon. You know her as Chickpea. Can't thank you enough, Chickpea, for coming on the podcast again. Really looking forward to speaking with you today. You know, it's been a while since your first episode aired, and since then you've become a backpacking and mindset mentor, full-time traveler, and a writer for the Trek. How does it feel to look back at how much life has shifted over the last year?
Oh, wow. What a question, Ivan. I absolutely love it. And I have to say that I'm just so excited to be back here. And as you say, it's kind of crazy that this is like a full circle where, you know, I did my first episode with Hikes and Mikes almost a year ago to this day. So it's really, really awesome to be back. So thank you so much for having me. And I think, this question, I just love the opportunity to pause and reflect on things like this. And the last few years, the last kind of year year, there's been a lot happening, and I just feel really proud of everything that's been going on. I'd always kind of dreamed of having the freedom to be my own boss, to choose when and where to work, or, for a long time, I didn't actually believe I could do it. And as much as I wanted this life, it always kind of felt safer and more comfortable to stay in my 9 to 5. And it really felt like something other people did, but I didn't do it. And so now kind of looking back at that shift, like I've taken this big leap and I've built the kind of life I used to dream about. And I just feel, again, incredibly proud of that. When I look back, it has been a while to see just how much has changed. I went from working full-time at Amazon as a program manager to through hiking the Pacific Crest Trail with zero backpacking experience. And now I'm traveling the world, I'm working remotely and helping others get outside, whether it's their first backpacking trip or a big through hike. And I absolutely love what I do. And there's just been like so much learning and growth that has happened in this last year. It's been really interesting to see. I'm naturally someone who wants to be very perfect at things. I move really fast. I set really high standards. I always want to do more. And it's really easy to get frustrated when progress feels slow. And so I've realized just how powerful it is to pause and reflect and just kind of remind myself of how far I've come and what I've created on my own in such a short time. So yeah, and last year it's been a whirlwind, Ivan, and I'm just, really excited to be here and share with Hikes and Mike's community of all the things that have been going on.
One thing that you described for this past year was that it was a mix of movement, mindfulness, and also building your coaching business. This is going to be a tough question because I feel like not just with travel, but all your opportunities that you're trying to build, your businesses. What does a typical week look like for you now, if such a thing even exists?
Yeah, I love this because it is something that I've been working really hard on. It's been a really big transition, right? From going from like a 9 to 5 job with a really clear structure, really clear deliverables, to now being my own boss with limitless ideas and direction. And sometimes that freedom can feel a little bit overwhelming because I just have so many projects, so many ideas I want to pursue that it's really hard to know what to prioritize. So yeah, lots of trial and error for that. But over time, I'm kind of slowly starting to build more of a rhythm and kind of clear sense of priorities of what actually moves the needle from day to day. So yeah, what a typical week looks like. There's a lot of flexibility in my day to day, which I just feel so lucky to have. Maybe I start a morning with a little bit of movement, if it's some cardio or gentle yoga. Right now, I'm like super into my coffee. I'm loving flat whites right now. And so I usually start with a coffee before diving into my work. And I'm especially excited because our next travel destination is Ecuador, which has an incredible coffee culture, of course. So I definitely feel like my caffeine intake is about to probably triple when we're there. But yeah, I think, what moves the needle for me every week is definitely my biggest focus is how I connect with my audience and clients. So, sharing content on social media is a really big part of that. So I can connect with people who are dreaming about adventures or planning their first through hike. I love my weekly newsletter, which is called Wild Hearts, which I've seen, Ivan, you are a recently new subscriber. Thank you so much. And I share travel updates, upcoming offers, kind of personal reflections as well of, the highs and lows of this lifestyle. I really want to keep it real and authentic and not just have like all the rainbows and unicorns, but really kind of talking, about real stuff and my real challenges. But it's really my favorite creative outlet. And I think really the readers love it because it has this kind of like cozy catch up with a friend vibe. And yeah, you can subscribe for free through my link in Instagram. And it's a really great way to stay connected and also support my work while kind of jealously following along my backpacking and travel adventures. So yeah, my week to week is a lot of flexibility, a lot of spontaneity, but slowly but surely there's more structure and kind of clear priorities. So definitely a learning progress.
Yeah, I definitely recommend to listeners if they get a chance to subscribe to your newsletter because I think I've received 2 so far. And yeah, the aesthetic in there and just the way it flows, it is cozy. That's the perfect word for your newsletter. Now, Chickpea, you've been able to call beautiful multiple places across the globe a home base over the last couple of years. And I'm wondering, how has your relationship with the idea of quote unquote home evolved after spending so much of the past few years in motion?
That is like so on point that you're asking me that question right now, because it's an idea that's actually been like really top of mind lately, especially, I'm 33 years old. I've taken a different path than most of my friends and family. And I feel like right now at my age, like everyone around me is getting married, buying homes, having kids. And I will be like totally honest. There are moments for me where I have like total envy of their lifestyle and their stability, right? Like that's a natural thing for humans to crave, is that stability and groundedness. And so, at the same time, I'm so proud of the life I'm living right now. Like I really do have to pinch myself and like remind myself of just how lucky I am. But I am living out of a suitcase. I am moving countries every few months and building a business that I'm, deeply proud of, where I can actually see my work making a real impact on others. And it's just incredibly rewarding. But man, are there moments when I miss having a home base? Like the simple things of like, I just dream of having a closet where my clothes are neatly organized, a bookshelf where I can like stack my favorite reads, or even, a kitchen that has all of my favorite tools and gear. Like I really crave that sometimes, but I also know that I'll have that chapter someday. And right now I'm living a different one. And that chapter looks like it's full of adventure, it's full of growth and spontaneity. And so, yeah, to come back kind of full circle to your question about how my idea of home has evolved, like it's changed completely. I've kind of realized that home doesn't have to be, it may sound a bit cheesy, but it doesn't have to be a physical place filled with things, right? It's become for me almost something more internal, like a feeling of belonging within myself. And, so much of what we call home is the external. It's the house, the possessions, the comfort. And I'm really learning to find that sense of home inside of me. And so it's been kind of, quite a big personal journey of really shifting that understanding and experience of what home looks like for me and what that means for my day to day. So I love that question.
Yeah, I think a lot of the times you think of home as tangible objects, but I think it truly is something that's internal for a lot of people, whether they realize it or not, because those tangible items can one day disappear, but it's really what home feels like internally that not necessarily matters, but I think that's where the true idea of home is. It's an internal thing rather than an external thing. Chickpea, it was great to see all the adventures that you and Artifact were able to go through in the last year. And one of the ones that really caught my attention was when you spent 2 months, I believe, in Scotland house sitting and did the West Highland Way. Can you share with the listeners what drew you there? And then what did you learn from that slower rhythm before setting off on such an iconic trail?
Ivan, have you ever been to Scotland out of curiosity?
No. So Europe is like my 2027 goal, because Scotland and then the Lake District and Snowdonia National Parks are high on my list.
Oh my gosh. Okay, well, keep me posted for 2027, because Snowdonia and also the Peak District I have not done but are also high on my list. That could be super fun to to go together and explore. Yeah, Scotland is like, if anyone listening, if you ever get the chance to visit Scotland, go. Like it is such a special and magical place. And of course, you definitely don't go for the weather, right? Like it is most of the time pretty miserable. It's wet, it's rainy, it has a lot of Pacific Northwest vibes, but you go for the people and the landscapes. And yeah, you're right. Artifact and I spent about 3 months there last winter. So 2 of those months were house sitting cats. And then the third month was hiking the West Highland Way. Everyone thought we were a bit crazy for visiting Scotland in the winter. And, there's some truth to that. I think Artifact and I have a healthy dose of crazy, but it was definitely, really, really magical to be there at that time of the year. And I think what made it especially special was, as full-time travelers, it's really rare that we get to stay somewhere that feels like a home, right? Going back to that previous question. And so we often look for these house sitting and pet sitting opportunities instead of staying in the hotels and Airbnbs. And so Scotland wasn't actually even on our our radar until we stumbled on this 2-month cat sitting opportunity in the west of the country. And it was just absolutely perfect. I posted probably too many photos of the view from the house on my Instagram. The kitchen was like a 5-star kitchen with like all the tools and the gas stove. And yeah, the views were overlooking the ocean. It was just absolutely stunning. And so it was a really cozy place to nest for a while. And the 2 adorable cats, Flash and Zeus. So once we arrived, I kept hearing about the West Highland Way and this iconic, it's a 96-mile trail. And I was like, wait a minute, like we can't leave Scotland without hiking this. And so it wasn't planned at all. We ended up completely having to change our travel plans for the month of March. And we didn't have any of our camping gear. And so we decided to go on the West Highland Way in what I like to call like true luxury mode. We stayed in like little B&Bs along the way. It was like a crazy contrast to the PCT. You know, we had every single night we had soft beds and hot showers and even, you know, a pint or a wee dram of whiskey as they call it in Scotland. And yeah, I can just kind of briefly talk about the West Highland Way here. I think what I like about this trail specifically, the West Highland Way, is actually just how customizable it is, right? Like you can go full backpacker or full comfort or kind of like a mix in between. So it's really easy to navigate. The infrastructure is amazing and you still get that wild remote feel, but with having that infrastructure. So it's easy to get to and from the starting point. There's even like a luggage surface if you're into that. There's plenty of accommodation options, but also, you know, wild camping and campsites. So I think it's kind of a perfect trail for someone that's like dreaming of a first long distance hike abroad, no matter if you are an experienced backpacker or someone that just wants to start dipping their toes into these hiking experiences. And yeah, I have a few highlights that I can share of the West Highland Way, which make it like super unique. And maybe I can convince you, Ivan, to add that to your 2027 list. There's 2 really cool things about the trail. One is the West Highland Way passport, and the second is what we call the honesty boxes. And so the West Highland Way passport's really cool. It's like a little booklet that you buy at the start. Like you can find it in the first town, which is called Mulgai. If you were to read the spelling the way Mulgai is written, it's a completely different way to how I'm pronouncing it right now, which is always a fun fact about Scotland. So you buy this passport at the start and you get stamps along the way. And so it's a really great way to support the trail and at the same time have this like really cool tangible memory of your progress. I will say I forgot to get one stamped at one stop, and I have to say it's like crushed my perfectionist heart. So I definitely am going to have to go back, unfortunately, to the West Highland Way to get that stamp filled. But yeah, it's been a really cool keepsake to have. And then the honesty boxes, which are just like the cutest idea. There are these old telephone booths that have been turned into these little self-serve snack stands along the trail. And so you can basically just like open up this little telephone booth. You can grab what you need, whether it's a fresh baked good, a soda pop, or even like some first aid. I think I grabbed like a Band-Aid out of one day when I needed it. And like it's an honesty system. So you just drop a few coins in a box. They also have PayPal, which is great because I did not have any pounds, British pounds or Scottish pounds to share. And then you just keep walking. And so it's this like really cool, charming kind of like trust and community spirit. Food is spectacular. I probably gained weight after hiking the 96 miles from like the full hearty Scottish breakfast, which are like haggis and sausages and baked beans. And, then you end up in town and you're having cozy pub dinners. Like I had fish and chips probably every night with a pint of beer. And it was just, it's a really fun experience, the West Highland Way. And I definitely recommend, I think the 96 miles would take, I think the average is about like 8 to 9 days. It took me an artifact about 11 days because we did add on a few extra. And you can find all this information on my blog. I've done lots of articles around like the complete guide for the West Highland Way, but I've also done a lot of daily entries so you can kind of see day to day. But if you have the time, I definitely recommend like adding a few days in so you can also explore Scotland, hang out in Glasgow for a day before starting the trail. trail and then hanging out in the Highlands for a couple days after and just resting and relaxing and really just soaking up the Scottish culture. So yeah, highly, highly recommend it. Scotland's awesome.
Oh man, what an awesome experience. And I gotta ask, I love the idea of the honesty boxes. Is that a community thing where like community members help out, or is it a specific maybe group that's stocking it, I guess?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say it's a mix. I think some of the honesty boxes were run by local small businesses that were really close to trail, and other honesty boxes were run by the specific community that you were walking through. So it's not owned by any one specific group, and that's where it's kind of exciting because each honesty box will have its own personality, its own flair. My favorite one, which was just before we went to summit our first Munro in Scotland. They call it peak bagging in Scotland, very similar to, summiting the 14ers in Colorado. And the honesty box there, they call it Ben's Bakes. And it's run by this local individual who literally bakes fresh goods, baked goods every single day. And so you're just having this like lovely treat first thing in the morning. And I have to say, I was very overconfident when summiting my first mountain in Scotland. I blame the PCT. I didn't take into account the fact that, in Scotland, you're starting at sea level and then you're hiking up to, I think Ben Lomond is around 3,000 feet. And that particular summit is about 7.5 miles. So I think that maybe averages to about 450 feet per mile. So like you're starting at zero and you're going up, and that was a lot of work. I felt very proud of myself and very well achieved once we got to the top of Ben Lomond. That's a side quest to the West Highland Way. So again, definitely if you want to experience the peak bagging of the Munros in Scotland, try to add in a few extra days to enjoy that. There's Ben Nevis at the end of the West Highland Way. You finish in Fort Williams, and Ben Nevis is the most popular one to summit, and for good reason. It's the tallest mountain in the UK, so definitely a fun one to experience. I was too tired at the end. I didn't do it.
Oh man, I think the US needs to incorporate some honesty boxes on some of these popular trails because baked goods, I mean, even a Band-Aid, right? Just little things. And I love the fact that you can either drop some coins or money, but then also have that electronic option. That's really awesome. Your adventures continued because the other long trail that you did, and correct my pronunciation if I get it wrong, is the Rota Vicentina Fisherman's Trail in Portugal. It looked stunning. It was a little bit different because you had these really rugged looking cliffs, ocean views. What stands out most about that hike when you think back on it?
Yeah, I mean, I think you pronounced that way better. I'm not even going to try to pronounce it, but you did a great job there. Yeah, the Fisherman Trail was like, I don't even know where to start on this one. There are really no words for this trail. Like, it is spectacular, and I really think it's a trail that everyone should experience at least once in their life. I'm already considering going back. Like, I'm like having withdrawal from the Fisherman's Trail. It was spectacular. So it's a little bit longer than the West Highland Way. It's about 140 miles long. So that took about 2 weeks to do. I completed that in April of 2025. But again, like it's beautifully maintained. There's really good infrastructure, so it's really easy to navigate. There's great transportation that takes you, to the trailhead. And once you finish the hike, there are tons of cafes, restaurants, and so many different accommodation options. So it's really accessible. It's comfortable, but it really has a wild element to it. Like sometimes I really felt like I was so far out there and civilization was really far away where it was only a few miles. But I feel like this trail felt like a true vacation for me. And I think the reason why it was also so amazing was that I hiked it with friends. There were 4 of us together. We all met on the PCT a few years back and we were just constantly laughing. And it really reminded me of how special those trail friendships are. And they really do last a lifetime. And it was just, a lot of fun to see them again. So the Fisherman's Trail, it starts in a town called Porto Covo, which is about, maybe an hour, 2 hours south of Lisbon. And you can take a local bus down. And Lisbon is probably where you would fly into. It's an international airport. And then it ends in Lagos. You typically hike southbound. And again, it's a really easy route to access. You can take the local buses, and it's really cool to finish in Lagos because it's like a really fun, vibrant vibrant coastal town to celebrate your finish. Man, I could talk about the Fisherman Trail this entire episode. Like it is, I think what was so cool, and especially the contrast with the West Highland Way, is like 90% of the hike is coastal. And so you are surrounded by like endless ocean views, dramatic cliffs, wildflowers everywhere, especially in April. So everything was super lush and green. But what I found interesting is that even though it's a coastal hike, it was never repetitive, right? Like a lot of the coastal hikes, it's like, okay, I've seen the endless beach for 3 days straight. I want a little bit of diversity here. But on the Fisherman Trail, every day was different. Like I'm not exaggerating. You know, one day you're hiking above these pristine, beautiful sandy beaches. The next day, you're literally hiking on that sandy beach to the next. You're walking along these like jagged rock formations where I swear I felt like I was in the Game of Thrones, to these like vibrant sandstone cliffs glowing of just like different shades of orange and reds. Like, I don't know, geographically, it's just really fascinating. I think it's where like the European and African tectonic plates kind of meet. So that explains why there's these incredible layered cliffs. And I'm definitely not a geology person, but I feel like for the Fisherman Trail, it was impossible not to stop and stare. It was like a hiking through this open air art gallery. So it was absolutely spectacular. Ivan, are you curious to hear about the food on the Fisherman Trail?
Of course, because I've heard Portugal has some amazing food.
Oh my gosh, you are in for a treat with the food. So I've been to Portugal quite a few times before the trail, but there's two things that I discovered that are now like my new favorites from this trip. So the first thing, if anyone enjoys a little cheeky glass of wine at the end of their hike, it's something called vino verde, which translates to green wine. And it's not green, don't worry. They just call it that because it comes from the north of Portugal and it tends to be a lot more lush and green up there. But it's this crispy, like lightly sparkling white wine. You know, you can get it by the pitcher in some of the restaurants. And so safe to say we were having a lot of fun at the end of the day. And probably my favorite food that I discovered in Portugal is called percebes, which are gooseneck barnacles. They look terrifying, like very not visually appetizing. They kind of remind me of like long fingernails. But they are delicious, and they're a huge delicacy in Portugal because what we learned is that harvesting them is really risky and actually quite dangerous because you can only find them clinging to rocks at the edges of the waves. So like those waves are coming crashing in and you can kind of easily get swept away. So there's only really a handful of professionals that have, you know, the experience to harvest them. And there was a really fun full circle moment of our recent backpacking trip along the Olympic coast in Washington, because I've heard that you can actually find the same gooseneck barnacles on the Olympic coast. And so, you know, we went looking for these gooseneck barnacles at low tide, but unfortunately the tide wasn't low enough, so we couldn't find any. But we found a gooseneck barnacle the last day that had just like washed up on the beach. So it wasn't fresh, but it was super cool to see that there is evidence of those same gooseneck barnacles found in Portugal on the Olympic coast. Yet another reason why the Pacific Northwest is amazing.
Oh, and what a great segue, because one thing that I really enjoyed seeing was that you made it back to the Pacific Northwest. You know, I think maybe you're a month removed from your full month of backpacking in the Cascades and, like you said, the Olympics. How was it revisiting Washington trails after so much time abroad?
Oh, it felt so good to be back, Ivan. Man, I'm, again, probably going to go on a tangent of how amazing that month backpacking trip was. Like, I've been back in Nova Scotia for the whole summer where I'm from, but after, those few months back east, I was just like craving mountains. I missed the Pacific Northwest so much. So I turned it into a month-long backpacking trip through the Cascades and the Olympics, which I'd never been to before. And it was just so spectacular. And I've said this before, Ivan, I'm just so jealous that you get to live out there. You are living in the best place on earth, truly. And so some exciting trips that I did through that month is that I hiked the PCT in 2023. And, a lot of hikers often have to skip sections in Washington, unfortunately, because of the wildfires. But I was actually really lucky with my timing. I didn't hit any major fire closures in Washington, but I still did have to skip a section because of my time limits with my US visa. And so I decided to skip the 84-mile stretch between Snoqualmie, Stony Pass and Stevens Pass, which ironically is actually one of the most beautiful parts on the entire trail. At the time, I didn't really think much of it. I didn't know what I was missing, of course. But yeah, this September, I went back to hike that section, and it just it blew me away, right? Like the area is called the Alpine Lakes Wilderness, and like for good reason, like lakes galore. Every night we were camping beside like another, beautiful alpine lake surrounded by the Cascade Mountains. A few lakes that I remember, Spectacle Lake was just like insane. Deception Lake was really cool. I think that morning specifically was just like perfect Pacific Northwest vibes, where it was super moody and misty and foggy over the lake. Yeah, absolutely spectacular. I will say that I really miss my thru hiker legs, because probably back on the PCT that would have taken me, 5 days, 6 days, I don't know. Ended up having to carry 8 days of food. So my pack was like wildly heavy. I was pretty tired. But I think another interesting part about that PCT section was just like how much wildlife we saw. And I don't know if it was because maybe we were a little bit late in the season, that kind of the bubble of the PCT hikers already went through and there were less people on trail. But yeah, lots of wildlife action, which was really neat. I spotted a pine marten, which was so cute. It was playing peekaboo from behind a tree. It kept like hiding behind the tree and popping its head out and looking at us, then hiding back again behind the tree. Just super playful. All the pikas are adorable. And at that time of the year, they're gathering all the leaves for winter, and they have these massively impressive food caches. And I think the real highlight for me, I've become really into bird watching lately. I think it's a really fun hobby that's really accessible wherever you are in the world, and you don't have to be in the mountains to go bird watching. You can literally bird watch from, outside your window or at your local park. Like, it's just a really neat and fun activity. I don't know much about birds, but I feel like I'm maybe more in tune with spotting them now, which on the PCT, I just didn't really have any experience or I guess interest in, in birds at the time. And I saw this. I'm not giving this credit to Artifact. I spotted a northern saw-whet owl, which apparently is like the smallest owl in North America. We didn't know it at the time, obviously, so we only confirmed that once we got back in service. But like, this owl is so small that it can fit in the palm of your hand. Like, it is so adorable. Just walking on trail, and all of a sudden, like right next to the trail on a little tree branch, I spot this like tiny, adorable little owl who's just kind of like watching us, and he'd, turn his head like full 180 to look down the trail, and then turn his head back again looking at us. And they're kind of known, these, what are they? I can never pronounce it, the saw-whet owl. They're known as the owls that are hidden in plain sight because they camouflage so well against like the trees and the branches. And so that was just spectacular. And it couldn't have come at a more perfect moment, because just a few days earlier, Artifact and I eloped in the North Cascades. And so we were hiking this section as a part of our honeymoon, and seeing that rare owl just felt like this beautiful little omen, right? Like a sign of good luck as we started this new chapter together. So that was, really, really special.
Oh, I love that. And congratulations on the elopement, you two. It was really great to hear that you were going to do that in the Pacific Northwest. And I'm wondering, Chickpea, going back to the PCT after a few years removed from it, were there any coming home moments out there that reminded you why you fell in love with long trails in the first place?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I definitely have a very busy mind, let's say. And it's what we call in yoga the monkey mind. And so I'm always kind of jumping from thought to thought. And I feel right now as an entrepreneur, it can kind of feel constant. Like the mind is just constantly running different ideas, different projects. It's really hard to switch off. But when I'm back on trail, when I'm back outside in the mountains, something really just kind of shifts. And I wouldn't say that my mind goes quiet, like it's still busy, but there's a sense of clarity with those thoughts, and like the noise almost organizes itself and makes it more clear to me. And so there's like also the simplicity and the day-to-day that helps me see things more clearly. And I think that's why I'm also drawn to the longer trails, because it does take a few days in the backcountry to find that rhythm again. But that slower pace kind of lets everything fall into place. And I don't know, I don't think I necessarily have it in me to do another 5 or 6 month through hike to find that rhythm again, but I'm definitely interested in finding maybe like like a month-long trail, so I can reconnect to that. But yeah, it's funny. With the Olympic Coast, we did like a 3-day backpacking trip there. And I think I still really identify as a thru hiker more than a backpacker. And neither are better, right? Neither one is better than the other. But I think I connect as a thru hiker because I thru hiked the PCT without any backpacking experience. So I kind of skipped that like casual weekend rhythm and just went straight into the thru hiker mindset where you wake up, you walk, you get closer to a goal, just that one clear purpose. And so when we went backpacking on the Olympic Coast, which, yeah, it was my first time out there, it's Artifact's favorite place in the world. So I really had kind of high expectations and it was amazing. But yeah, we planned 3 nights there and decided to camp at the same spot for 2 of those nights. And I don't know, as a thru hiker, it felt like super strange to be in the same place. And so when we arrived, I didn't really know what to do with myself. Like we had the whole beach to ourselves. You know, there were these beautiful sea stacks with bald eagles and like seals bobbing in the waves. We had the whole point to ourselves for those 3 days. And I ended up naming it Chloe and Orion's Point. But once we set up camp, I honestly didn't know what to do with myself. Like I'm so conditioned to wake up and hike. As soon as my backpack goes on, I feel like through hiker mode engaged. So staying still, being at the same campsite felt like very uncomfortable at first. And I really had to like consciously shift my mindset and allow myself to slow down. And this is something that I talk about a lot in my yoga classes, especially in the yin and restorative style that I teach. And there's this tension between the doing and being, right? And I think we're so conditioned, especially in today's world, that we equate busyness with success, right? We're always striving, we're achieving, checking those boxes. And that's what I call the doing mode. But we also really need to practice the being mode, slowing down, being present, letting go of the expectations and the to-do lists and just really allowing ourselves to be. And it can sound super simple, but it's really uncomfortable and actually even scary to sit still and be with yourself, right? And so on the Olympic coast, I, really felt this resistance in my body. So I decided, okay, one afternoon, I'm just going to sit and I'm going to sit with this like resistance and kind of like restlessness. And I literally did that. I sat on a driftwood log all afternoon. I listened to the bald eagles. I watched the seals, listened to the waves rolling in. And for the first time, in days, I wasn't hiking, I wasn't planning or thinking. I was just there, right? And I think that moment reminds me why mindfulness is really, really important, right? It's not an abstract idea, but it's really a lived experience. These are the same practices that I teach my one-to-one clients who are preparing for their big outdoor adventures, right? So of course, we're going to cover the practical side of gear, safety, and route planning. But I think what's really unique about my coaching and my mentorship is that we build the mental toolkit. So it's through the mindfulness, it's the awareness, it's the ability to pause and reflect when things get hard. And I think that's really kind of where that true transformation happens. And so I think, it felt like a full circle to also have that lived experience myself on the Olympic coast and remind myself that it is a constant journey and, just the importance of slowing down and coming home to yourself. So,
and I gotta tell listeners, if you get a chance, go check out Chickpea's Instagram feed because she recently posted her pictures from her campsite there on the Olympic coast, and it looked amazing. Definitely a campsite that I'm going to have to ask for the pin location because I'd love to go there next summer and check it out. I really love, Chickpea, that you are incorporating your own mindfulness and reflective experiences in helping others enjoy the outdoors. And you've really turned your love for hiking and travel into a way to help others take their first step outdoors. What inspired you to start guiding and mentoring new backpackers?
Oh, I actually just got like shivers you asking that question. Yeah, it's one of the best feelings in the world, right? Knowing that your work has directly impacted someone else's life. I think this past season, for example, I worked with several PCT hikers and it was just incredible to watch their journeys unfold, right? From getting their permits back in November, sharing their fears and self-doubts while they're preparing for the PCT, to actually stepping out on trail in that southern terminus in California California and facing those hard days in Oregon and Washington and ultimately making it to Canada. And I just feel so honored. I feel so grateful to be a part of that transformation, to see, the grit they have to go through, the growth, the bliss and joy, and that I can be a small part in that journey is just really magical. And I think I feel really inspired doing this work as well because I've been there, right? Like I know what it's like to be sitting where so many people are right now, like daydreaming about something more, craving a deeper connection to nature and wanting to prove to yourself that you're capable of doing hard things. And I didn't grow up outdoorsy. Like I honestly didn't know how to hike or what gear to use or how to feel safe. Like I had this deep desire to go hiking, but I don't know, how do you start? How do you even know where to find where the trail begins? Like these are simple things that I didn't have access to. And so, I want to be that for others, right? I want to be that mentor and cheerleader who says like, you can do this, like you got this. And so for me, hiking and backpacking really has been incredible tools for personal growth and clarity through my life. And it's helped me build the confidence to leave my 9 to 5 and start my own business, to find directions, to meet the love of my life. So I'm really, really passionate about helping others step into the space because I truly have experienced it firsthand. And I know how life-changing it can be when you take back the control of your life and kind of get in the driver's seat of your life and start doing those things that make you feel alive. So yeah, a lot of inspiration there.
One thing that you're also doing to help through hikers and backpackers in general is you launched your trail yoga routine this year. And I love the fact that it's designed by a thru hiker for thru hikers. Can you share a little bit about what inspired that project and how you hope it helps people on the trail?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I launched my Yoga for Hiker program last year, again, with the goal of helping long distance hikers prepare, mentally and physically for the trail. And I think that's why yoga and mindfulness are just so well combined. So there's a lot of focus on building strength and endurance, which of course is super important. But, I think what often gets overlooked is maintaining that flexibility and mobility both in the mind and body. So I think the Yoga for Hikers is really where that fills the gap of that preparation piece. And I think, again, like this Yoga for Hikers program really inspired me when I think back to the PCT in Washington, 2,000 miles in, 5 months of doing the exact same movement every single day. Like my hips, they're only going in one direction forward for 5 months. And somewhere along the way, I lost my own personal yoga routine on trail. And I really wish I had stuck with it, even if it was just like a simple 10-minute stretch in the morning and evening. And so by the time I reached Washington, my hips were so tight. They were in agony. Climbing over blowdowns felt impossible. And even squatting down to go to the bathroom was like such a struggle. And which, by the way, I swear, this is why Washington invented thunder boxes, like, those open air wooden toilets on trail. I think they just made them for PCT hikers because the first time I saw those things, I thought I was hallucinating. Like, that is pure trail magic if I have ever seen trail magic. So I think, that experience really planted the seed for Yoga for Hikers. It's an on-demand program. So you have recorded classes that you can access whenever you'd like. As you've said, it's designed for thru hikers by a thru hiker. And I've also added a gentle sound healing session because I'm a certified sound healing practitioner. So it's really cool for relaxation. My favorite part of this program is the on-trail yoga routines. And these are really cool short-minute audio sessions that you can download and listen to offline while you're hiking. And so I have one for each part of the day. I have a morning routine that you can listen to while you're still lying in your tent and waking up. I have a midday reset for when you're taking a break on trail, or an evening routine for when you reach camp. And, these classes really are designed to be realistic for hikers. So you don't need a yoga mat. You don't need to do fancy poses. They're simple, effective movements to keep your body feeling good and grounded. So it's super beginner friendly. You don't have to have any yoga experience. You don't have to be super flexible. Yeah, it's just been really fun to see how these practices have been super helpful for hikers. And they've told me how it's helped them release tension, how they sleep better, they stay more present through the ups and downs. And yeah, that's really why I've created it. I truly wish I'd had something like this when I was training for my PCT.
Yeah, I've recently got back into my yoga practice, and after hiking or even just extensive workout, having something like yin to just relax the sore muscles or the aches and pains. It's such a restorative practice that I truly did miss, and trying to incorporate it back into my restorative days. I'm really glad that people are able to access this and practice it at home or on the trail. And we'll be sure to put those links in the episode show notes so people can check it out. Now, Chickpea, another great thing that you're doing in 2026 is you're doing Wander, your 5-day women's retreat in Spain in April of 2026. It sounds like an amazing experience. What can women expect from this experience?
Ivan, I'm so excited for this retreat. Yeah, it's a 5-day hiking and yoga holiday in Costa Blanca, Spain, where you'll spend days walking sections of the Camino del Alba and spend your afternoons relaxing in the private villa by the pool. The setting is just like a dream, honestly. It's surrounded by olive trees and vineyards with the mountains as a backdrop. Each guest has their own private room, a bathroom, and balcony, and all the meals are included. Everything is cooked by our in-house chef using fresh, locally sourced ingredients, and there's even like a little herb garden on site and resident chickens that just like roam around, so you can enjoy fresh eggs in the morning if you'd like that as well. And yeah, I've really created this experience kind of for a past version of myself, like the one who really had this deep desire to get outside and connect with nature but didn't quite know where to start. And so I like to think of it as your starting point for your outdoor era. So each day we'll do gentle hikes on the Camino that are about 7 miles through the Spanish countryside, stopping in local villages for lunch, having the Menú del Día, which is the daily lunch special, really taking time to soak in the scenery. And you don't have to have any hiking experience or special gear. You just need a backpack with water and snacks, and everything else is going to be taken care of by me. So it's really for anyone that's curious about hiking, whether it's a long distance trail, if it's day hikes, this is the perfect introduction. You get to experience that rhythm and that joy of walking every single day, but you also get to return every evening to the cozy and luxury comfort of this private villa. And, we'll unwind with daily yoga sessions by the pool, do that yin and restorative yoga that you like so much, Ivan, with the relaxation of the sound healing with my Tibetan bowls. And I also have a gong, which my students just absolutely love. And I am keeping the group super intimate and personal, so spaces are super limited. I do have a few spots already that have been claimed, which means I think right now there's only about 5 spots left. So if you have that little spark or pull to join, I'd say really trust that. Come to Spain this April with me and give yourself that time to rest, to hike in nature and do some yoga. So yeah, we'll definitely put the notes in the show notes. And if you have any questions, absolutely don't hesitate to reach out.
Where can people go to learn a little bit more about the experience?
I'm posting a lot on Instagram, but there is a really dedicated landing page on my website, which is chloejanejacobs.com. You can find the retreat on the homepage, but if you add to the URL chloejanejacobs.com/hiking holiday, that's where you can find all of the information.
Yeah, we'll put that in the episode show notes as well so people can check it out. The last couple of questions are regular questions that we like to do on the podcast. One thing that's a regular segment is we like to do a quick scroll through our guest IG and highlight a post that caught our eye. And for yours, it was the recap of the best spots in Oregon along the PCT. And one of the big reasons it caught my eyes, because you mentioned huckleberries, which is my favorite trail snack, of course. And then Tunnel Falls, which I think for me still is one of my favorite hikes in the Pacific Northwest. Can you take us back there for a second? What made Oregon so special for you on the PCT? And why do those moments stand out enough to make the highlight reel?
Oh, I'm just imagining all the delicious huckleberries right now. They are truly the best trail snack. I think Oregon is really the most underrated section of the PCT, and I think that's probably why I loved it so much, and it was truly a highlight for me. There's a lot of hype on the PCT around the Sierra and Washington, and don't get me wrong, those are absolutely spectacular, and it's so hard to choose your favorite part of trail, but I think that's why Oregon really did surprise me, because no one talks about Oregon. They talk about Oregon being flat and that you could crush your miles and you can do the 24-hour challenge. And so I had really low expectations going into Oregon. I didn't really know what to expect, but I was just blown away. You have the Lassen National Park, you have Crater Lake National Park, you have the Three Sisters Wilderness, Mount Jefferson, Tunnel Falls, as you mentioned, Mount Thielsen. The Oregon Cascades are just phenomenal. I do think I was really lucky with timing. Like, I went through in August, a little later than most, so I did completely miss the worst of the mosquitoes that torment hikers in Oregon in the summer. I definitely battled mosquitoes in NorCal, but yeah, Oregon felt like an absolute gift where I could just stop and take breaks and just enjoy all of the views without being eaten alive. And I think my favorite memory of the PCT also happened in Oregon, so it really does have a special place in my heart. It was peak meteor shower season, and I decided to cowboy camp so I could fall asleep under the stars, right? The dream. It's so special. And so we've actually ended up finding this really quiet little beach just off trail. And we were 5 of us together, and we all laid out our sleeping bags side by side, and we were just looking up at the night sky. And I swear, every few seconds, another meteor would just streak across the sky. And, we'd start laughing and giggling and pointing them out like little kids at summer camp. Like, it really was a pure, joyful, blissful moment, really carefree, that I'll never, ever forget. And funnily enough, it coincided that same day ended up being my biggest mile day on trail, 32 miles. And so I just remember lying there at night feeling obviously so exhausted, but just so proud, proud of my body, proud of my mind, and everything that I had done to get to this moment of sleeping under the stars and giggling like a little kid watching the meteor showers.
Yeah, I think I've shared this on a past episode, but I want to say it might have been the same year, Chickpea, where I was camping at Kolchak Lake in the Enchantments, and it just so coincided with the meteor shower, and I was trying to fall asleep, and we didn't have the rain fly on, and just seeing it streak through the trees, I was like, I gotta get up. And I think everybody at camp had the same thought because they were seeing what I was seeing, and we all got up around like midnight and just like little kids, like you said, just looking up at the stars and just seeing the streaking meteors across the sky was a really fun moment and a core memory for sure.
That sounds so spectacular. And yeah, I love that, a core moment. Like, you're never going to forget that moment. That's amazing.
These next couple questions, Chickpea, I'm interested in seeing if they've changed. Your responses have changed since the last time you came on. And the first one is about regular routines, whether it's a summit routine or end of the hike routine. For a lot of us, it's packing that favorite snack or drink. Maybe it's a moment of zen or reflection. For others, it's also enjoying that favorite meal afterwards. Is there a regular customer routine that you were actively doing throughout the last year?
Yes, and it has changed actually since a year ago. So this is really cool to share. Again, I'm very much like through hiker mode. And so the last month in Washington, we rented a car. And so when we finished the PCT section, it was the strangest feeling of my life to walk back to a parking lot where my car was waiting for me with like other clothing other than my dirty hiking clothing. Like, I remember telling Artifact, we got in the car, I'm like, this is so strange. Like, we should be hitchhiking into Leavenworth right now, right? Like, what's happening? And so that was really fun. That whole month of backpacking, my routine was preparing, a fresh set of new clothing. So once I got to the car, I could immediately change out of my smelly hiker clothes. And even if I hadn't showered, I was able to wear clean clothing and feel like a human again. And man, that's a special feeling. I gotta say, it's something I didn't get to experience while through hiking the PCT, wearing either my dirty hiking clothing or, my rain gear during laundry. And so that was a really special routine I got into.
There's a couple great feelings that hikers and backpackers get. And for some, it's switching out into comfy shoes after a long day of hiking. But I think seeing your car after hours, if not days on trail, is one of the most rewarding feelings that you get. Just to be able to see your car at the trailhead. And like you said, if you have extra clothes, different pair of shoes, it's such a rewarding feeling. So that's such an awesome experience that you were able to experience that here in Washington. Now, the next one, Chickpea, is about luxury items. And I'm wondering, in the last year, has your luxury item changed? And by luxury item, not necessarily like cost-wise, but something something that falls outside of the essentials, but that brings comfort and joy for you on the trail?
Such a great question. And, such a big topic, and especially in the through hiking community, and definitely kind of gets trickled in backpacking, right? Because you want to be carrying light, but you want to be comfortable out there as well. And it's funny because I just posted on Instagram about my luxury item that I carried through my month backpacking trip in Washington, specifically the Olympic coast. I ended up thrifting these like bright orange, like super comfy pajama pants, and like they're super bulky, but it was starting to get really cold out there. I think one of the nights fell below freezing, and I'm wearing the same pants right now because I can't stop wearing them. They're so comfortable. But I ended up packing out these pants, and I have my thermals. I had everything I needed to stay warm, but these pants just were like the definition of cozy, and that's what I wanted for the Olympic coast. We also went out to the Olympic hot springs in the Ellowa Valley. I think I'm pronouncing that right, and that was like the best feeling to like come out of. I mean, Artifact and I don't think this is like healthy, but we stayed in there for like 8 hours one day, just sitting in the hot springs. And, to be able to come out, and I didn't have a towel to slip on these comfortable orange pants was just spectacular. And I was kind of inspired by a friend that I'd met on the Colorado Trail that I did back in 2024 summer. It's cold. The Colorado Trail is above 10,000 feet on average. And so those nights can get really chilly, especially in September. She had thrifted a pair of pajama pants, and I'd see her at camp, and I was so envious. She looked so comfortable, and I was cold wearing my ultralight thermals. And I think she kind of planted a seed that, what, ultralight, lightweight is important, but if you can be comfortable and if you want to pack a pair of pajamas on your backpacking trip, you should absolutely do that.
And did you end up snagging those in Seattle, or was it over in the east side?
Man, it was a tiny mountain town. It was probably a little bit west of Forks in the Olympics. I can't even remember the name, but it was like all it had in that town was a general store, a little cafe, and a thrift store. I kid you not. And I just walked in curious, and these guys were $3, and it's the best investment I've ever made.
Oh, I love that. Now, you've already talked, Chickpea, about some exciting opportunities coming up in 2026, but are there any hiking or travel goals that you have for the remainder of 2025, or anything exciting on the horizon for 2026?
Yeah, 2026 is going to be another big travel year. So we're leaving North America. Actually, once this podcast goes live, I'll probably already be in Ecuador, where we're going to spend the winter in Ecuador for about 3 months, and then spend a month in Peru for some epic backpacking in the Andes. I haven't done a ton of research, by the way, for backpacking in Peru. So if anyone has been to Peru and has backpacked and is currently listening, reach out to me on Instagram. I'd love to hear your experience and get any advice. Super excited about that. I've never been to South America, so I'm really looking forward to that. And then, in the spring and summer of 2026, we'll be in Europe. So of course in Spain for the hiking and yoga retreat in April. I'd love to hike a section of the Trek, which is in France. Again, I don't think I have it in me to do another full through hike, but I'd love to do a section of that. The Southern Alps looks really spectacular and is really close to where I used to live in France. The West Pyrenees is somewhere I haven't really explored myself. In terms of big hiking adventures, there's so many, and I don't commit. I'm a spontaneous planner, so it's usually a month out when I actually decide where I'm going to go next. But the Lycian Way in Turkey is on our radar for a potential spring or fall through hike. It's about 450 miles. It goes through like a ton of cool historical ruins, and Artifact is a huge history buff, so that's right up his alley. And coastal views of the Mediterranean. I'd love to hop over to Iceland and Norway while we're in Europe as well for some through hikes. But again, you're probably going to have to follow along on my Instagram and see where I end up, but it's definitely going to be another adventure-filled year, and I'm super, super excited.
Can't wait to see all the content that you're able to share with us, and really looking forward to seeing where 2026 takes you. I'm really glad that you're tackling South America, because I don't think I've announced this on the previous episodes, but I was able to cross off New Zealand in 2025, and that was a big bucket list item. And I was trying to figure out, like, how do you top New Zealand, or how can you go to a place that is equally as stunning? And I finally was like, like, Patagonia has been on my bucket list for a long time. And that's just, the gateway, because Peru, Ecuador, there's so many beautiful places in South America. And really looking forward to seeing what your experiences are like there, and hopefully be able to steal some ideas from you for 2026, 2027.
That's so dope. That's so exciting. I'd love to hear about your adventures in Patagonia. And I listened to your episode in New Zealand, you crazy person going bungee jumping and everything. It sounded awesome.
Oh, yeah. That one, Chickpea, I've never had a moment of mindfulness like that. Like, there's moments in yoga where there's like true peace and quiet that I get, but the walk to the plank, I try to describe it to people like there was no anxiety, that there was nothing flowing through my mind. It was just like almost like I was walking in slow motion is the best way to describe it. But the peace of just launching off the bridge and dangling, almost touching the water. Oh, like I want to see if I can recapture that moment somehow.
I have shivers, and I have to say that I don't think I've ever heard anyone describe a moment before jumping off a plank into the depths of emptiness as pure Zen. So that is amazing that you're able to find that moment of clarity and Zen before leaping into, the unknown.
I like that. Yeah, that word Zen. Yeah, perfect moment of Zen. Now, Chickpea, the last question I want to ask you before we get to the this or that questions is, over the last year, your episode has inspired a lot of people. It is the highest listened to episode of the podcast, and the amount of feedback that I got over the last year of how you inspired people to get on trail. I want to give you an opportunity to share some, wisdom for someone who is listening, who's sitting at their desk, dreaming about an adventure, but doubting they could ever do something like this. What would you tell them?
Yeah, that's really touching, Ivan. Yeah, thank you for sharing. And I think, there's so much I want to tell them. And again, it's kind of going back to like the past version of myself, right? And I think a big thing that I want to tell the listeners is that you aren't alone, right? I think there's really this experience that when you're dreaming about an adventure or wanting to get outside more, that it can feel really isolating, right? Especially if you're scrolling through social media and it looks like everyone else knows exactly what they're doing. But, a lot of people think big adventures are for a certain kind of person. It's for the ultra fit. It's for the fearless people that don't have any fear, or the person that has it all together. But really the truth is that there's so many others who are feeling exactly the way you're feeling right now, right? There are people out there who are craving more time in the outdoors, but just don't know where to start. So you're not the only one. And I think another thing is that this is a big one that I had to really let go of and kind of shift mentally, is that you don't have to have it all figured out before you start, right? Really kind of putting that perfectionist mind to the side. I think one of the biggest misconceptions about adventure is that you need to be 100% ready to know every skill and every detail. But honestly, my biggest lesson and wisdom is that the clarity and confidence actually comes after you take that first step, not before. And I'll share. I love sharing my personal stories of growth and learning. And there was a really kind of funny one, I would say, on the Pacific Crest Trail. I've shared that I had zero experience. I really didn't know what I was doing a lot of the time at the beginning. I made so many mistakes. There was a time on day 3, just starting out on trails at Lake Marina. It's 20 miles in. I was really nervous to cook a hot meal. So I had been eating tortillas for 3 days straight, but I was craving, a hot meal, a hot dinner. But I was really nervous to use my stove because I'd never used a stove before. And I was like, man, am I going to, cause a wildfire out here? I'm a bit nervous. And so I finally took the courage. I got the courage to cook a hot meal. I was around other hikers as well. So I put some water in my pot. I, attached my stove to my gas canister, and I put my pot on top of the stove, and we were just hanging out. So time went kind of fast, but it seemed like it was taking a really long time to boil my water. And it was like 20 minutes later, and I kind of asked out loud, like, my water, this is really weird. My water's taking forever to boil. And another hiker looked over and asked, like, oh, did you light it? And, that's when I realized that unfortunately I had completely forgotten to ignite the stove. And so I'd just been sitting there for 20 minutes letting this gas run. And it was the silliest mistake. But it taught me something really important that, again, if I had waited until I had everything figured out, I would have never started the PCT. And so at some point, you have to be willing to trade that certainty for curiosity. And that's why I always come back to the beginner's mindset. Like, it's okay to not know everything, right? What's the fun of it in any ways? You have all that growth, you have the stories and confidence, and that's all found in that kind of unknown. So, start spending time around people who expand your definition of what's possible. Be around the people who see adventure and change as normal. Join your local hiking groups. Keep listening to podcasts like the Hikes and Mikes. Ask for help, find a mentor, and just keep taking small, consistent steps towards your goal and surround yourself with people who inspire you. So you don't have to figure it all out before you start.
Great recommendation and love the insight. This last section of the podcast is the this or that questions. You've done it before, but we have added some new ones for this season. Some of them have also stayed there, so I'm interested in seeing if your response has changed. You're more than welcome to say both or neither, but the first one is, if you had to choose hiking seasons, would you choose summer or fall?
Yeah, I have to go fall. I think there's just so much beauty in fall, the changing color, the changing seasons. I've been really into foraging mushrooms lately. Found some really neat mushrooms in Washington, chicken of the woods, the chanterelles. The chanterelles in the Pacific Northwest are so different to what I would be foraging in France. They are massive. So yeah, I really, really love the fall season.
And then this one's a returning one, but if you had to choose waterfalls or summits?
Summits.
And coming back to the Washington PCT, I'm wondering if this changed, because I know that you had to do the Kendall Catwalk, but switchbacks are straight up.
That's a good one. Yeah, Kendall Catwalk we did actually kind of in the nighttime, so I need to go back in the daytime to really soak up those views, but I would have to say I still love switchbacks.
And then trek poles or freehand?
Trekking poles, absolutely. They come in handy. So, especially for safety, I think trekking poles are really important. If you find yourself having to cross a stream or if there's snow, trekking poles are just so multifunctional. I love them.
And I'm wondering, Chickpea, has your footwear changed? And if you had to choose between these two, would it be trail runners or hiking boots?
I did try hiking boots for a day hike in Washington just to see if it had changed. And in fact, it has not. I'm still 100% trail runner fan.
And then when it comes to trail systems, do you prefer a loop trail or an out and back trail?
Loop trail.
You probably experienced this in the Pacific Northwest being late summer, early fall, but if you had to choose between these two types of trail hazards, would you choose muddy or rocky?
Oh, that's a great one. Oh man, definitely rocky. I do not. Mud sticks with you, right? At least the rocky is hard in that moment, but you're not stuck being covered in mud.
And this next one, Chickpea, is a tough one, I think. But if you had to choose, would you choose a sunset hike or a sunrise hike?
Well, Artifact and I did elope in the North Cascades for a sunrise ceremony, so I'm going to have to say sunrise.
And you've been able to experience both these seasons in stunning fashion, but if you had to choose, would you choose spring wildflowers or fall colors?
Oh, I don't know. I said fall earlier, so maybe I'll go for spring wildflowers.
And then these next four are new for this season, and I'm wondering, when you're doing your long trails, if you incorporate electrolytes, are you using tablets or gels or even powdered electrolytes?
Yeah, I love that you have new questions each season. It always keeps it really exciting. I love electrolytes. I do always use the powder. I will say the downfall of the powder is that I always get it around the rim of my smart water bottle. And so I just constantly have leftover flavor. So I'm trying to find a better system for that. But yeah, electrolytes, powder, definitely.
And then this one's a tough one, but if you had to choose between these two, would you choose bug bites or sunburn?
Oh my gosh, that's a great question. Oh man. I hate bug bites. I just can't. My mindfulness does not work for some reason when I have bug bites and it's scratchy all over. So I guess I'll have to go for sunburn.
And then I know that you've had to deal with both of these trail hazards on many of your trails, but if you had to choose, would you choose a stream crossing or a snowfield traverse?
Stream crossing. They're dangerous, but I find they're more maybe various in terms of their challenge of the water, the height of the water. You also kind of have a nice refreshing wake up when you dip your toes in them. So yeah, stream crossing. crossings.
And then the last one, I think you kind of answered, but if you had to choose, would you choose ultralight packing or would you bring some luxury items?
Yeah, I'd say a mix. So I'm a huge fan of luxury items. It really is important to be comfortable out there.
Well, Chickpea, that was it for the this or that questions. It has been an absolute blast reconnecting with you and hearing about all the amazing adventures and experiences that you've had over the last year. If folks want to learn more about your upcoming retreat in April or learn about some of your previous experiences in the UK and in Europe, where are some of the best places they can find you both online and on social media?
Yeah, thank you so much. I am definitely really active on Instagram. So my handle is It's Me Chickpea. Absolutely sign up for my free newsletter, The Wild Hearts. It's a great way to stay connected with me, support my business, and live vicariously through all of my adventures and backpacking.
Awesome. And like I said, we'll be sure to put all those in the episode show notes so people could check them out. Chickpea, it has been great having you on the podcast once again. And I wish you and Artifact an amazing close to your 2025 season. And I can't wait to see what 2026 brings for you guys.
Thank you so much for having me, Ivan. Thank you so much. It's been a blast. You are awesome.
And that brings us to the end of this episode alongside Chickpea. We extend a heartfelt thanks to her for joining us on the podcast. Be sure to follow her on Instagram at _itsmechickpea. And for more, be sure to check out the episode show notes. This episode of Hikes and Mics was produced by Jordan Smith. Be sure to follow her adventures on Instagram at jordan.journeys. As we wrap up season 12 of Hikes and Mics, I just want to take a moment to say thank you. Thank you to every listener who tuned in, shared an episode, or sent a message. And a huge thank you to all our incredible guests who trusted us with their stories this season. The community continues to grow because of you, and I'm beyond grateful for the time, energy, and heart that you bring to this space. We'll be taking a short break before season 13 officially kicks off on January 5th, 2026. But don't wander too far. We got a few special bonus episodes dropping over the next few weeks, so be sure you're subscribed and stay tuned in. As we head into the holidays, I want to wish you and your loved ones a happy, healthy holiday season and a wonderful new year. May it be filled with fresh trails, meaningful miles, and moments that remind you why you love the outdoors in the first place. Be sure to follow us on Instagram at Hikes and Mics, where we'll be sharing behind-the-scenes moments, trail adventures, and updates while we recharge for the new season. We'll see you in season 13. Remember to tread lightly, breathe deep, and keep exploring. Happy trails and happy hiking, everyone. This episode's music was created by Ketsa. Follow him on Instagram at Ketsa Music. This episode is brought to you by Ursa Minor Outfitters. Folks, I'm absolutely in love with my loon mug. It's handmade. It's an absolute piece of art. Whether it's at the office or at the house, people keep asking to check it out. If you're not a loon fan, they also have other beautiful mugs for wildlife fans of moose, bears, and eagles. They specialize in products highlighting the outdoors and local pride through quality design by local artists. They've even started expanding into items beyond mugs, like apparel, dog accessories, and soon candles and more. They also try to partner and highlight other small businesses, and in some cases, forego profits in lieu of charitable giving to help their community, such as the dog rescue. So check them out, UrsaMinorOutfitters.com, and enter promo code HikesMikes10 at checkout to receive 10% off your order. And for our four-legged hiking partners, they also have a portable silicone dog bowl and also a sweet over-the-collar dog bandana. Go check them out, UrsaMinorOutfitters.com, and don't forget to enter promo code HikesMikes10 at checkout to receive 10% off your order.